Hey, everybody, it's Rick Wilson. Welcome back once again to the strategy session. I am delighted to be joined tonight by both Stuart Stevens and State Senator, excuse me, God, I got something in my throat today, Carol Alvarado from Texas, who is one of the folks in Texas who is leading the fight against the unbelievable and small d Democratic incursion by the governor and by the White House in an attempt to gerrymander the state of Texas. And that it has arisen into this big national drama that we are having one state trying to execute a cheat code in the year of our Lord 2025 in order to hold on control of the House of Representatives. So, Senator Alvarado, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. And I want to start out by asking you guys today in the Senate side came out to defend and stand in solidarity with your House colleagues. Where does the state of play as of right now? My understanding is they did not make quorum today in the House.
Right. Thanks, Rick, for having me. Yeah, they did not make quorum, and we stand in support of our House colleagues. Our numbers are a little different in the Senate. We don't have the numbers to break quorum, but what we tried to do today was to bring up the flood relief bills ahead of redistricting. And that was shot down. So we walked out and we talked to some of the press and said, we should not be taking this up. This is mid-decade redistricting. Right. We have hundreds of lives that have been impacted by the floods. And we're just now bringing the first bill up to the floor for a vote after a month.
They seem to expended a tremendous amount of energy in the House and in the governor's office and in the attorney general's office in blustering and claiming they're going to drag these people back in chains and arrest them all, and zero energy on recovering from one of the worst disasters in Texas in recent years, this flooding that has caused so much disruption and so much pain for Texas families. Is it your understanding, or is it your sort of sense of these folks right now? They're really sort of past being representing constituents in Texas. They represent Donald Trump. They represent the Republican Party nationally and the Trump movement rather than the people of Texas.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, here's how it all went down. Trump said, I want 5 seats out of Texas. They've been very specific about what they want. Right. He said he wanted 5 seats. Then later, of course, he said he was entitled. Right. And then came the DOJ letter, which was very surgical. They went after 4 districts in Texas, 3 that are in Houston. All 3 touch my Senate district. And those districts are represented by African Americans and Latina. They're majority minority districts.
Right. Stuart and I have both been through a lot of redistricting battles over long careers. And I've seen in various states, both sides, as I like to call it, pushing their luck as far as they could. This, however, is not even close to a rational look at a map. This is, I know people are going to criticize me for using this phrase, but this is some straight up apartheid. They have compacted minority districts, African American, Hispanic districts, into these smallest possible little bijou districts to enable them to do this. I mean, it really is, Stuart. I'll let you jump in here. This really is an outrageously brazen attempt, to racially segregate Texas in a way that it ought not be.
Yeah, I mean, look, to me, this is a continuation of what started when they refused to certify the election. Where were all the votes that were in question? Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit. What do they have in common? They have a lot of non-white voters in those states, which, it used to be they just tried to stop these people from voting, and now they can't. They just don't want to count them. But Senator, I was just interested, inside your world, did y'all see this coming? Was this something that was discussed, or was there sort of assumption that even Donald Trump wouldn't go this far?
No, we didn't hear anything about this during the regular session. Yeah. If it was such a great idea, why didn't somebody bring it up during the regular. Oh, but you know what was going on during the regular session was the court case on the 2021 maps. They all voted for. They all were under oath. Adam Kincaid, the non-Texan who drew the Texas maps, drew the 2021 maps and then testified that they were drawn without paying attention to race. He defended those maps. And now my understanding is that he drew these maps. So can we find him with perjury? Because you can't have it both ways.
Right.
Yeah.
It really is striking to me that the desperation that underlies this whole thing about 2026, because there is a strong sense in the country, given the collapse of Donald Trump's numbers below that magic 40% barrier he's always been able to sustain, that the Republicans are a party in some political trouble. And I'm wondering, I mean, Texas is a long way from having a nonpartisan redistricting effort, but what do you think the state would look like with a nonpartisan, or as increasingly as popular to call them, algorithmic redistricting, rather than something drawn in the back of a lawyer's office?
Well, you definitely would have another Latino or two districts, possibly in the Dallas area, in the Harris County area, and probably two more African American congressional districts, opportunity districts.
Right. This was posted today, and I think it's a fascinating piece. Texas has 8 million registered Democrats and 6.5 million registered Republicans. It's not a red state; it's a rigged state. Mm-hmm. And I think that obviously plays itself out both at the congressional level and in the state House and state Senate level. A good friend of ours here at Lincoln, and she's a board member of Lincoln. Claire Dewar is a big Democratic activist in Dallas. She's said to me before, it's like these seats are crafted with a very fine candidate preservation, Republican preservation mode, in even stuff down in the state House level that is almost unparalleled. They really are picking their voters rather than the voters picking their elected leaders.
That's exactly right. And look, Texas has a history of being in court over redistricting maps for as long as I can remember. Voting rights, everything related to elections, voting rights, and redistricting. So this is certainly not anything new to us. However, when it comes directly from the White House, and I've heard the rhetoric that folks on the other side are saying that other states have done redistricting in mid-decade. But what's different here is that this is the first time you've had a president who not only said, I want mid-redistricting, oh, and by the way, get me 5.
Yeah, Senator, it really seems to me to be a replay of what he tried to do in Georgia, when he just said, look, I want this number of votes that can make it happen. I think one thing that's sort of the law of unintended consequences in politics, that I just can't imagine that they expected that there would be this surge of support for what across the country for what you are doing. And I think, there's I think way too much talk about Democratic Party drifting or having an identity crisis. But the one thing it seems that solves all of that is the kind of passion and conviction and courage that the Texas Democrats have said here. I think it's been a real wake-up call. Like, we can fight this.
Right.
And I think that the whole country owes you, all of you, just a debt of thanks for that.
Well, thanks. And what we have also tried to do is to bring awareness on the national level. Last week, myself and 8 other senators were in Boston, and we had a press event with legislators from over 35 states from across the country. And they recognize this is not just isolated to Texas. This is not a one-off. This is coming to a state very near you soon. We had representatives from Missouri, who Trump has already said they're probably next. Florida. We had North Carolina, who's gone through something like this. So everybody recognizes across the country that this is not just a Texas problem. This is like a bad virus that's going to spread if people don't stand up and fight.
Go
ahead, Stu. Go ahead.
I've said for a long time that as soon as Texas goes Democrat in the national election, which I think is just a question of when, not if, the next thing you're going to see Republicans do is try to abolish the Electoral College.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're not going to be able to win without Texas. I mean, you can sit in those rooms, you're just not going to be able to get to those numbers.
Yeah.
And talk to us about the 26th election. I mean, the Senate seat seems to be a tremendous opportunity.
Right. We have, a U.S. Senate race that is taking shape. It's definitely taking shape on the Republican side. We're not sure who all is going to run on the Democrat side, but that's why they're afraid. A lot of their policies are unpopular, and that's why they want these 5 seats. And we've had also another disadvantage in the congressional 18th district, where you had Sheila Jackson Lee, who passed, and then Sylvester Turner, who passed away. And that seat, that election hasn't been called for until November. And you've had other members of Congress where you had some vacancies or unfortunate deaths, and those elections have already happened. So we were already coming in with a deficit, and now this.
Yeah, the other thing I think that's in play that Republicans are worried about in Texas and elsewhere is the impacts on families from both this insane trade war, the mass deportations, and the big bad bill are all going to sort of roll together in one moment, and it's going to start hitting harder early next year. And by November of next year, I think there's going to be. I think this is why that panic is rising. They sort of woke up and said, "Uh-oh, we set the building on fire. Now what do we do?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've had pretty lengthy conversations with colleagues across the aisle, and their supporters feel like they have a very short window to try to ram all this done, because they feel that after Trump leaves office, if he leaves, then it's all over for them. And we should also point out that this is the way it goes in midterms. The pendulum swings to the left, it swings to the right. I mean, in 1994, Newt Gingrich and the contract with America comes sweeping in, and we just you move on to the next election. That's the normal way of the way campaigns and politics goes.
You mentioned that.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's an era, strangely, when there are a lot of differences in parties. Rick and I worked on the Republican side, but I think there at least was some base assumption that democracy should exist in America, and that should be the system that we govern ourselves by. And I think it is not in the least an exaggeration to say Donald Trump does not believe in democracy, and much of the power structure now in the Republican Party, a lot of the money people, from the Peter Thiels to Musk, they clearly, Peter Thiel said they don't believe in democracy. So I really think that changes everything, because an assumption that there could be some middle ground that could be of mutual good to both sides, I think is really evaporating now.
I know, and I'm afraid of that. Last week we celebrated the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act, and you think about how that came to, and that was led by a Texan, a giant, somebody who was bold, who had balls, and got it done in a time with a legislative body that you look at that now and you wonder how he managed to get that done. And
it is.
And if we had anything remotely like that to try to get done today, it would never see the light of day.
No, we stopped being a nation that does the big things, the big important things, because they'd rather play the small ball than the large ball. I want to ask you a couple of questions, Senator. That somebody mentioned this to me earlier today. And you brought it up briefly. the Senate race between our old Stuart and I's old friend John Cornin and the insane Attorney General Ken Paxton, who is, folks, if you're watching at home, if you're playing our home game, Ken Paxton is a criminal and has managed to bribe his way into surviving impeachment and etc. He and John Cornyn are about to have the battle royale of all Senate primaries in the great state of Texas. I'm curious, Paxton is really swinging for the fences right now, Senator, in terms of he wants to arrest Beto O'Rourke. He wants to, send the Texas Rangers to arrest all the House members. This guy has increasingly been off the rails. How is it, other than the fact that he gets a lot of money from a handful of these oil and gas dudes, how is it that this guy is still besmirching the great state of Texas?
Oh, I know. It's like a big cockroach that just, comes out of the woodwork, and no matter what the climate is.
Right.
I sat through those
Right.
impeachment and, heard all the evidence. I was disappointed in the way all of that came out.
Sure.
Because to me, the evidence was very clear. And yet, he is pursuing higher office, and I think, is a real threat to Cornin. But then that could be good for us.
Sure. I mean, look, I want that fight to be as long and bloody as humanly possible.
And I think it's so Shakespearean here that, John Cornyn, who when I first knew him was a Texas Supreme Court justice, who at least had pretenses of being intellectually engaged, someone who kind of maybe was above politics, and then Attorney General, and this is someone in Senate. I don't think this is someone who 10 years ago, 12 years ago would have invited Donald Trump to his house.
Right.
I mean, it was like, what? This guy gets to hear his wife saying, what? Like, Donald Trump? He's coming to dinner? Like, what? And, had it's just a sort of a parable for all these Republicans. Had he stood up and fought, he wouldn't find himself in the primary. It's how extremist movements are. They always have higher and higher purity tests.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so now he's running against somebody who, in any normal politics would not be a serious, credible candidate.
Yeah. Well, they've all enabled Trump. They're all enablers.
Exactly.
And if they had just nipped this in the bud in the beginning, then they wouldn't be scared of their primaries, constantly looking over their shoulder.
Right.
And that's where we are today. You mentioned Georgia. Well, Republicans there, they had the backbone to stand up and say no. And that's what I'm challenging Republicans here in Texas. Stand up, get a spine, grow a pair, say no, quit enabling this monster.
Yeah, it is a party that has been that has grown very accustomed to saying yes to the monster over and over again, and courage is the highest virtue, and I think it has been inspirational for a lot of national Democrats to see Texas Democrats who you know this better than anybody. You guys are badly outnumbered for all the reasons, but you've been standing up against the behemoth, against the monster in the last couple of weeks of this insane redistricting fight. And I think people nationally have taken a lot of inspiration from it. I think it's actually toughened up a lot of the potential 2028 candidates who are thinking about running for president on the Democratic ticket. It has led them to understand that if you fight, people will respect it. If you fight, if you stand up and say, no, I will not be a part of this, people actually have a lot more respect for that than the, my honorable colleague stuff that used to be nice, but now, your honorable colleagues on the other side of the aisle want to kill you, maybe literally.
Well, I'm glad to hear that we've been inspiring to other legislators and elected officials across the state, because that's what it takes. We can't just simply roll over. It seems like we're always in preparation to fight something just because of the politics here. Right. But this is a fight that we will not shy away from. And even if we are outnumbered, outgunned, we're going to put up our best effort, because this is worth fighting for. There are things that are bigger than us individually, and I want to be on the right side of history of this. And
Right.
I think you have to sometimes put things aside and sacrifices aside. I admire the House colleagues that are away from their families, their job, and we are being as supportive as we can to them. But the nation is watching what happens in Texas, and we know what will eventually happen here. But if we can inspire others to start getting ready and to fight and just shine a light and say, look, this is what's happening.
Right. Right. Well, Senator, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. Folks, the Texas Democrats are out there. They are leading the fight right now. This is a fight we're going to see in Florida, in Ohio, in other states, and we're also going to see the Democrats fighting fire with fire as we go forward. So, Senator, I want to thank her for coming on the show today. Stuart, before we go today, we have a new complexion to our nation's capital, a city you and I spent a good amount of time in our lives in, and it is jackbooted. It is the National Guard being deployed in the nation's capital.
Yeah, Senator, you're back. I
wasn't trying to pull her out.
No. Look, this is the beauty of live television, or whatever we call this stuff now.
Streaming. Whatever called now.
I had a question before you let you go. From being in Texas, from your viewpoint, can you just speak to how these ICE raids, the kind of ramifications of it? It's so hard to look at this from the outside and really know what people are saying, and you do. So what is it that you're hearing?
It's extremely heartbreaking because families are being separated, and some people are afraid to come out. It's impacting certainly the business community. It has an impact on the economy, and we've had the opportunity to have a comprehensive immigration bill, and Trump, screwed that up too. So this is frustrating because people need to take account into everything that this man has destroyed since being in office, opportunities for an immigration bill, the tariffs, and now redistricting, and now we call it Redistricting.
Redistrict.
Districting.
Oh, I am so stealing that. Stealing that.
Steal it. Yeah. And we're calling it Trump-mandering. And I tell my Republican colleagues, you're all pandering to the Trump-mandering.
I love it. Well, it's look, it is, I think this is the fight. And folks, one more thing. We had one more piece of one more slide here. A lot of people were pinging me earlier in messages saying, well, what about, are they going to arrest them? Can they put them in jail? They cannot. Let's bring that slide up, guys. One more. I know we've got that. The civil arrest warrants are only valid in Texas. Breaking the quorum is not illegal. The Constitution allows it, and the FBI has no jurisdiction. Now, that last one, the FBI, who knows what happens when weirdo Kash Patel gets the bit in his teeth. But, this is not an easy play. And a lot of this is some of this, I think, Senator, is performative for the MAGA base so that they look at Cornin or look at Paxton as like the big, hairy, Trump advocate in chief.
Yeah, and I find it so hypocritical, of all people, Paxton talking about wanting to arrest people. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, just think about it. It's something like John Cornin calling for the FBI. So you want to take the FBI off chasing child sex traffickers, off going after drug cartels, after going after serial killers, and send them after Texas legally elected legislators? I mean, what? This is the law and order party? Really? You really think that's a good use? I mean, my dad was an FBI. He said, I can imagine if he said, look, we want you to go up and arrest some Texas legislators. He said, are you out of your friggin' mind? I mean, no, we have problems here. It just shows the sort of triviality that the Republican Party has immersed itself in. This sort of, stuff that even in a high school election would just be seen petty and small.
As an absurdity. Yeah. It's going to be a hell of a fight. I know you guys have a lot of struggles ahead, Senator, and best to you and all your House folks. Let's stay in touch. We'd love to make sure that we're talking to you guys as this story develops. Here at Lincoln Square, we are trying to get people more coverage of the things that really are shaping our democracy, and this is a big one. And we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on today.
And thank y'all for all that you do. I'm a big fan of all of your initiatives. Thank you for having me.
You're the best. All right, we'll talk soon.
All the best.
So Stuart, before we wrap up, hey folks, and by the way, we're wrapping up a little quickly tonight because I'm going to go be on MSNBC in a few minutes. Stuart, I mean, this authoritarian game that we're playing in DC right now is, I think it's a distraction from the Epstein materials. I think he's trying to give his base a way to nudge each other and go, look, they're arresting black people, which is something a lot of his base really, really likes. But I mean, this is not going over as well with National Guardsmen who are talking with obviously people in DC. But I think it's also like offending a lot of conservatives who are like, wait a minute, you're now federalizing the function of police in cities. And if you're a legitimate libertarian or legitimate conservative, I don't think you can address this and say, this is a great idea.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's any coincidence that this happens on, say, a Monday, and on Friday, he's supposed to meet with Putin.
Right.
I mean, this just shows who Donald Trump is and who the Republican Party, what the Republican Party has become.
Yeah.
But, it's not enough to say to your colleagues, and we've talked about this many times, to your friends or whatever, well, this is terrible. But I mean, you have an international war criminal who's coming to the United States with an arrest warrant, and we're not going to arrest him.
Right.
But we're trying to arrest Texas state legislators and sending. I saw these pictures of these DEA agents walking down the mall next to these joggers, and I just got to be thinking, they're like, this isn't what I signed up the DEA for. I didn't want to be like a crossing guard.
You know what's funny? I mean, and folks, if you know Washington, yes, there is crime in DC, but it's about 40 blocks southeast of where all these guys are patrolling. It is in one area of the city, the northeast, where Georgetown and Foggy Bottom and the White House are located, is about as safe as Lucerne, Switzerland. It is not the city in flames that Trump is portraying it as. This is an epic lie, but I really do think it's race baiting for his base, because they've been very restive because of the Epstein stuff. They're mad at him for that. I think he thinks a good dose of rounding up black people on TV will help him.
Yeah, but look, I sure would if I was Democrats. I'd use it to start talking about making DC a state.
Absolutely.
Make DC a state, make Puerto Rico a state.
Yep.
What was it that Bomber Harris said about the Germans, that they had this mistaken idea that they could bomb people and they wouldn't get bombed?
Right.
I think the Democrats need to take a lesson from that and not play by these old rules.
This is a challenge to the country when he says, I'm going to start deploying National Guard units everywhere when I think there's disruption. Folks, this is about establishing and normalizing this. Yes, it's a distraction, but it's also about normalizing the use of federal power against his political enemies, whether those are states or cities or individuals. And I think this thing is we thought Los Angeles was bad. I think this is actually less justified and more telling about his desire to be an authoritarian leader than even the LA deployment was.
Yeah, and it's just so disingenuous, because if you're really going to try to solve a problem, I mean, this is just performative. And you're going to throw a bunch of money at this, and then what's going to happen in 3 months?
Yeah.
It's going to be back to what it was, and probably worse than it was, because you'll have usurped a lot of the relationships that are being developed by local police. And it's such a slap in the face. And let's don't forget, in DC, it's where Donald Trump supporters attacked
Right.
policemen,
And he
Capitol
refused to
Police.
call out the National Guard then.
And he refused then to call it the National Guard when they were trying to hang Mike Pence. And yet now this is a crisis. And he
the
pardoned all
singular
those
crime
people.
spree, the all-time crime peak in D.C. in the last, since the War of 1812, was Donald Trump's people attacking the U.S. Capitol. And it is an amazing conceit that he can with a straight face do this, but he has shown us over and over again he can lie with a straight face about the big and consequential things. But well, Stuart, you mentioned in passing we're going to have Trump meeting with Vladimir Putin in the future Russian territory of Alaska. I folks, I'm only partly joking now at this point. I joked about it the other day. I'm like, there's a non-zero chance Trump could give Putin Alaska back. I think it might even be higher than non-zero now.
I don't know. Putin.
Stewart was woke. We're giving it back.
I mean, Putin, could probably offer to introduce him to some, recent high school graduates from Eastern Europe as the next Mrs. Trump, and he would do anything. I mean, just think about it. When you and I were drawn to the Republican Party, it was defined by Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Sure was.
And now you have an international war criminal who has launched a war of genocide against a European democracy.
Yep.
And the president of the United States is welcoming this monster.
Vladimir Putin has arrest warrants, folks, in almost every country in the world.
Yeah. So,
and the ones he doesn't have an arrest warrant, North Korea, China, Pakistan, Iran, a handful of others, aren't places that are on the American good list.
So, someone who has advocated arresting Putin is Senator Roger Wicker from Mississippi, who's now chairman of the Armed Services Committee.
Right.
And since it was announced that Putin was coming to Alaska, maybe I missed it, but I really haven't heard Senator Wicker saying, Donald Trump, we should arrest him.
Lindsey Graham, same story.
Yeah.
Tough guy Lindsey Graham all of a sudden is in the tall grass. So, well, Stuart, thank you for coming on today, brother. And folks, we're gonna pop off now. I've got a top of the hour hit with MSNBC, and they're expecting me to tune in a few minutes. In the meantime, everybody, thank you for watching Lincoln Square. Do us a big favor, like and subscribe to Lincoln Square on YouTube, on Substack, and all the other places. We are growing very quickly. We are about to cross a couple of big milestones. We're now routinely in the top fastest growing Substacks out there. That is all because of you folks, and share Lincoln Square with your friends. We really encourage it. And we will see you again next Tuesday. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Lincoln Project. We'd like to make an ad reminding Americans of the prices of everything from gas to groceries to school supplies. The cost of all of these things is way up. The reason we'd like to make this ad is simple. Donald Trump promised that prices on these things would go down if he was elected. With that in mind, let's remember one thing. Donald Trump's administration just ordered Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who ran Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile sex trafficking ring, to a cushy, low-security prison, and he said he's allowed to pardon her.
Is clemency on the table for her in exchange for testimony?
I know I have the right to do it. I have the right to give pardons. I've given pardons to people before.
A deal that good? Sounds like a good reason to lie about Trump's role in the Epstein saga. Thank you for your attention to this matter.